a slight apology to people on the Phantom Knee. I started doing a written review of this series of TUF. And halfway through, to be totally honest, I got completely bored and stopped. I have since read all the synopsis and stuff like that, and it looks like it got a lot better. So it's a bit unfortunate that I didn't bother carrying on. But there we are. As with most of these TUF finale cards, the actual card is not released until about the day before, because the programmes of who's fighting who, we don't know who the actual final match is until the same week as the fights. And so they have to release the card sort of just before the weigh-ins, basically. At least they do if it's mostly made up of the people who are actually on the show fighting. And it must be this time, because we only have we're a week away now, and we only have 2 fights available for us. The first one is Tony Ferguson and Yves Edwards. Yves Edwards is a very, very long standing fighter. I mean, his record's 41-17. You know, we're talking 15 TKO victories, 17 submission victories. He's also somebody who the UFC tend to use quite a lot, okay? He's already fought 3 times this year, and he fought 4 times last year, 2 times in 2009, 3 times in 2008, and all of these, well, at least from, where are we? At least from 2010. Oh no, actually. Okay, so that's not quite true. I was going to say most of those are in the UFC, but that's not quite true. All the ones in 2011, though, have been in the UFC. So he's being used quite a lot, which is you know, the UFC have a large stable, but they tend to only use a couple of fighters over and over and over and over again. So there we are. Tony Ferguson is actually a former TUFer. His record is only 12-2, which is brilliant, but when you're matching that up with somebody who's got a much longer record and has fought much more calibers, it's not so good. He's got 8 TKO and 3 submission victories. He's fought twice this year so far. You know, I think against almost anybody else, Tony Ferguson would win. I don't think Tony Ferguson will win this one, but I have hope that he won't be finished. I think if he just fights and doesn't get finished in this one, it will go a long way to adding to his credibility when he's fighting somebody with a stupid record, and not somebody who's had a surprising amount of losses either. I mean, his background, loss, win, 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 loss, win. That is Yves Edwards over the last 2 years. Okay, Tony Ferguson has a win streak of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But only 2 of those have been in the UFC, and the other 3, goodness knows who they really are. I think it's not a squash match, but I think it's a bit unfortunate. And of course, the other event, the other thing that we know is taking place on this card, is the battle between Jason Miller and Michael Bisping. Now, you will know that I do not like Michael Bisping for several reasons, really. First, because as the person who probably represents this country the most in that institution, he's just got a terrible attitude. And I think even people on the show have noted and said that, you know, he doesn't turn up for fights he thinks he's going to lose. I mean, that was the last time. This time, I believe he didn't turn up for one of the fight announcements. You know, he's not professional, really. That's the thing. He's not professional, and I just think we could do a lot better, to be totally honest. Jason does have a better record, and I think this fight is going to come down to, can Jason Miller submit Michael Bisping? That's the real question in all of this, because it's unlikely, I think, that Jason Miller is going to get knocked out or TKO'd, and I think it's very unlikely that he's going to get submitted. So I think this is going to go one of two ways. This is either going to go as a Michael Bisping decision, or it will be Jason Miller will be able to get some sort of submission. We do know that Bisping is a little bit weak on the submissions. I remember the bout against Senozik or something like that. Senozik, I don't know, something like one of the Australian guys, where he nearly got submitted by some kind of arm lock, but didn't. Now I'm sure he's come a long way since then, but I think that's the weakness, and that's Jason's strength, and that's what he has to play to. Whether he will or not, I don't know. I don't know. I think he stands a good chance, and I would like him to win as well, because I don't like Michael Bisping, and I do feel that in one way it's time for him to sort of not be so dwelt upon in the UFC, and this would be a nice way of making that happen. But do I think it's going to happen? Do I honestly think it's going to happen? I don't know. This one is a real struggle. It is a real struggle as to who I think, as to whether I think that Michael Bisping will be able to get all the way through and win by decision, or whether Miller will be able to submit. Because Miller's main loss comes through decision, it has to be said as well. I don't know, is the honest answer to that. I don't know, and I don't really want to be pushed into making a decision, but I suppose I think that obviously obviously it's all in Miller's hands, and I think if he doesn't do enough, then Michael Bisping will win, and that's the danger, isn't it? That's the danger. Having said that, he did do quite well with nearly submitting Jake Shields, one of the iffy wins that Jake Shields got. Okay, I shall go for Jason Miller by submission, but I do recognise that if Miller doesn't do enough, it's going to be a Bisping decision win. So those are the two sides of the coin as far as I'm concerned.